The Trader Cobb Crypto Show, talking business in blockchain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Trader Cobb Crypto Show. Today, of course, being in the middle of the Women's Week that we're doing here at Trader Cobb, looking to help understand what issues lie in front of women to get into the space and also trying to help pave a way into the space. I have Jennie Hill with me today, who I've been speaking to for nearly a year now in relation to similar type of topics and getting involved in helping more women to come into the space. So thank you so much for your time today, Jennie.
You're welcome.
So look, Jennie, you're a bit of a powerhouse when it comes to women in business and just helping women in general. And what really drove you to create the groups that you have created that have massive traction across this country and others? What drove you to do that, and when did you start that?
Well, I wasn't a feminist for a long time or really interested in women's issues. I was a teacher initially. And then I got into running a business in advanced driver training. And that's one of the most sexist industries there is. I think I'm the only female advanced driver trainer in the country. So I've experienced a lot of sexism through that. And that prompted me about 6 years ago to start working in sort of women's online activism. And I've started a couple of groups on my own on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So we talk about just women's issues and helping women get into different areas of work and domestic violence and those sorts of things. So, and then I saw cryptocurrency about 18 months ago for the first time. And I thought, wow, that's something that's very exciting for women to get involved in. One of the first things I noticed was it was 95% men. And I knew that, but I think the first time it came home to me was when I actually saw you speak at an event in Melbourne about 18 months ago, and there was about 500 people there, and I think there were 3 or 4 women in the whole room. And it really just came home to me that I felt that women were missing out on opportunities in that whole space. So yeah, I got involved.
We've definitely noticed that as well. I mean, clients, so the market's about 5 to 7% now. So it's slowly starting to grow a little bit more in favor. That's not to mean that there's not some wonderful women doing some wonderfully powerful things. I mean, there are. I interviewed a powerhouse yesterday again in the space, traveling the world, doing incredible things, and has done for many, many years, 30 odd years of her career. Not just in blockchain, of course, but in our social impact business and whatnot. So, I mean, what are some of the issues that women do face at the moment? Because we do hear about, obviously, the domestic violence one is certainly there. There's no doubt about that. As we come close to the rugby league season kicking off, that becomes even more prevalent, unfortunately. But what other issues are out there that are sort of, I guess, maybe slowing women from getting into certain other areas of business?
Well, when you start looking at sort of women around the world, you see that they own the least in resources, but they actually do the most work. Women are paid still on average around the world 16% less than men for the same jobs. Older women have the fastest rates of homelessness in the world, so partly because women have a lot less super than men. That's now changing a little bit because women are tending to go back to work earlier, but women in their 40s, 50s and 60s who took a lot of time off having children don't have any superannuation. So then if they're also involved in divorce and things like that, they're very, very disadvantaged. And women over 55 is the largest group of people who are homeless. Women can also be subjected to financial abuse. More than men are, and obviously when they have to flee domestic violence, they're very much financially disadvantaged. And then there's the whole socialisation side where women are socialised to care more about their family and not about their finances. They're also socialised to lack confidence, especially around finance-related things. And they're also taught to defer to male partners. So these things are slowly changing with younger women, but sort of women 40 plus in particular are very much subjected to some of those sorts of things. And then when you do actually start to get into the crypto space, you find some hostility online to women in some groups, obviously not the stuff that you're doing, but there are some online groups that women stumble into when they first start looking at crypto, where there's some really appalling behaviour and that just turns women off. And I think a lot of women just go away without ending up learning anything or investing.
Yeah, I see that too. I mean, look, there are some things that go on in some groups that are, it shouldn't be that way, and that needs to change. I mean, you've got, how many people? You've got a couple of groups now, from what I understand, or posts within groups. I mean, what sort of reach have you got with what you're doing? Because I know you've written for the Sydney Morning Herald, the Australian, and lots of different papers and whatnot. And what sort of reach have you got out to the greater female community around Australia and the world at the moment?
It's about 130,000 at the moment. So I get about 10,000 reach of about 10,000 a day through social media. So over a month, that's pretty big. So we post on, one of my groups is quite political. So we're looking at sort of improving the environment through changing politics.
Yep.
The other one's more about sort of some of the things I've talked about, domestic violence and quite high rates of women being murdered by their own partners, those sorts of things. So I don't have any personal experience of those sorts of things, luckily, but it's just something that's out there that I've become interested in, and so it reaches quite a few people. And then add on, I write for 3 different national publications as well, so that's fun.
So what sort of message are you trying to, coming back to blockchain and crypto assets, that sort of thing, what sort of message are you sort of trying to get out there to help include more women into the space? Because look, there are some great groups out there, don't get me wrong. There are some bad ones. There are some sexism pieces that go around, and just little things that some people might not consider being, sexist or, somewhat appalling, which are just posts of certain things that capture attention. And these groups are feeding into the fact that it is quite well known that there's mostly young men in the industry. Now, I think that needs to change. It has to change. We don't want to have an ecosystem here that is, not inclusive of all of us. And look, the reality of it is that the easiest way for us to grow this space is to double the size of it by bringing the same amount of women in. So what are you doing at the moment and have been doing for the last 12 to 18 months to try and help women feel a bit more comfortable about what can be technologically a little bit daunting, but also from the point of view as to, they might not feel like they want to ask the questions as much because of that sexism in some of those groups?
Well, I joined, when I first started, I joined a couple of women's groups, and at that stage, the prices of Bitcoin and other coins were going up, and it was sort of pretty easy. But then once that sort of changed, then you've got to look at a different way to do it. So obviously the right way to do it is to, trade coins. And I had a look at the courses and the online content that you were producing. I did look around for other things as well. I actually initially joined up for a course with another trader that I didn't find that I could understand very well. So then I signed up for your courses and I went through the whole lot, and it worked really well for me. And I felt like it was fairly easy for women to understand, because you come back to, that some women see, a lot of the young men in the space are gamers and people like that. So they're automatically quite a lot of confidence. They've also got a lot of other people around them who are similar. So you look at people like me, it's quite different. You can be quite isolated. So you've got to try and join in with other people who can help you and sort of, it's not really mentoring, I suppose, but in a way it is when you come into the groups, the Slack groups and things that you have, and you learn how to actually trade coins. But that has to be done in a way that people can understand. And I found your courses really easy to do that, and sort of very, repetitive. I'm not saying women are dumb at all. In fact, I'd probably say quite the opposite. But when it's something that you're not really used to, and also coming back to this thing of women are more often carers. So they might be looking after a disabled child or elderly parents, so they may not be able to work full time. Some women are home with small children. So you've got a way of potentially making money for your family, whether you've got a partner, you might be a single parent as well, that you can't go out to work. So I found this as, the crypto space is something that, to my mind, there should be more women in it than men, because it's something that does suit, the way a lot of women tend to live, whether it's something that you're trying to just increase your family's finances a bit, or you might even be the main breadwinner for a number of different reasons. It's something that obviously not at first, but I saw doing your courses, I saw it as a bit like doing an apprenticeship, where you're not sort of getting a lot out of it while you're actually going through it, but at the end of it, then you can start doing some trading, and you can start start getting back what you've put into it. So that's obviously how it's meant, and that's exactly how it worked for me.
Well, I'm glad. One of the things that I can tell you right now, honestly, is that one of my best, I suppose, students is a woman, Rach. I won't say her full name, but she's trading very, very well, very, very well, and making really good money too. It's not it's not just like $50 here and there. She's doing very, very well. And I've said this from the platform before, that historically, because I have trained a lot of people back in traditional markets as well, and statistically, I found women to actually be better suited to trading. And I think it's just because, from my understanding and my experience, it was that they were happy to ask questions. They didn't feel like, they couldn't be wrong. There was no sort of sweeping it under the rug. They literally asked the question, and you'd give them the answer. And, but when you realize that there's something you don't know, well, then you can start to learn. If you think you know it all, well, it's really difficult to teach someone who already thinks they know what they're doing. And I've found that they've had some very, very good results, both in crypto and in other asset classes that I've also trained them in. So yeah, by all means, ladies, get involved. We want you involved in this space. And
I don't know if you remember, you actually said that in front of a whole room full of men.
That was 500 men, yeah.
Yeah, and they all gasped because they didn't like being told that. But you've got to put your ego away to trade. I mean, that's one of the things that you actually say while you're doing the training, is that if you are really caught up in your ego and in succeeding and, making it work, then you're actually not going to be as successful. And I think that's one thing, obviously these are generalizations, but in general, it's something that, women maybe don't have that ego to the same extent.
And so how do we get more women involved in the space? So we understand that some of these groups are a little bit difficult for them to get involved, but we can't stop at that. That can't be used as an excuse. We have to find another way, because they're there. I know they're interested. I mean, gentlemen that are watching and listening to this right now, those of you that have a partner or a sister or a mother, there's no reason at all why they can't be involved in it. You're passionate about it. You're excited about it. You tell your mates, you tell your father, you tell your brother. You should be telling your sisters and mothers as well. And one of the unwritten laws of our space is that you help newbies. Okay, you help people to get into the space, because it's good for the entire community if we're helping each other and bringing more people in. So I really say, get them involved. They're there. They're just as good as us. They can do everything that we can do, and some things they can do better. So it's really important to bring in a collective society. Think about the posts that you're doing. Think about the comments that you're making. Would you say that to your sister? Would you say or do that to your mother? And that's the way we've got to start thinking about this. If we can create a really warm environment that is nurturing and supportive, I'm not just saying for women's sake, I'm just talking about in general, where everyone's included, then we grow this space a hell of a lot quicker. And I mean, Jennie, you're out there, you're obviously got a massive reach across the women's groups. Are you finding that there are more women starting to get more interested, and not just interested, but active in crypto and blockchain? It doesn't necessarily need to be the trading side of it, but just as a technology.
I'm sorry to say I haven't seen a really big change. but I've only been involved for sort of 12, 18 months. That's not a long time.
It's a long time in our space.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I think women are getting more confident overall. I think that, there's a lot of talk about women's issues in the media now. And I think overall women are getting angrier at maybe the disadvantage that they feel that they've faced, and they're also getting a lot braver. There's a lot more women going into gaming spaces and tech spaces. There's a lot of stuff happening in schools to get young women in particular more into sort of tech fields. And I think as that happens, it'll start to come through. You look at women my age, I'm not really sure. I ask myself why I'm a little bit different. I think it's because I've run my own business for 28 years and it's in a field where I've had to learn to have a lot more confidence, around, because I'm not naturally even a car person, but I've had to learn a lot of stuff about driving and about cars and all those sorts of things. And so I've just naturally sort of developed a sort of a FU attitude, if you like, to sort of, I should be able to do what I want to do without encountering that sort of resistance. And I think for women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, I think they're pretty set in their ways, and it's going to be a bit hard to change. But younger women, especially women 20s, 30s, 40s, I think they're just naturally starting to think, hey, there's a whole world out there, and I should be part of it. And they're starting to dribble into the spaces. For example, there's a crypto women's group that I'm in. I think most of the women in that group are in their 30s and 40s. There's a few in their 50s and 60s, but not a lot. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had better answers for you, but I think you just got to keep talking and keep, you bring people in a few at a time and they have success, and then it sort of drags more people in.
Yeah, well, success breeds success, and if there's if the women in that group are, and it's not just success it can be perceived as a short-term outcome in this space because people have made a lot of money in a very short amount of time, but success is built, and the building blocks are whenever you start, and the sooner you start, the better. Every day is going to pass. You may as well use the time as good as you possibly can to educate yourself, empower yourself, and move forward. And that's what I'm all about. What we're doing, not just for women, but for everybody. Giving them that literacy to understand that they can do other things that, people say, oh, trading's just for people in banks. It's not at all. It's for anybody who wants to do it. It just takes a bit of time and it takes a bit of learning. And it really does open up a lot of doorways if you're willing to put the work in it. It's not easy, but these women that are out there, I really hope that they're talking to their girlfriends and the men in their life as well, of course, and sharing that, the ability to understand what this space is. And end of last year, we developed a free course, which is 40 minutes long. You can get it at tradercobb.com/free tools. And that's really there the idea of that was to explain to my dad, to help him understand what it actually is. If I can get him to understand this, then anyone else can understand it too. He's 65, he's retired now. And it really is a step-by-step walkthrough of understanding what's actually going on here, because I think that once people realize what sort of a revolution, what sort of a change, what sort of a disruptor blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies can be, it's really hard to ignore it. Once you've opened the box, you can't really put the lid back on it. It's very easy to bury your head in the sand and say, oh, it's just that silly internet money. But the second you start to realize it and understand it, a lot of doorways open up, and there's a lot of job vacancies in blockchain development and whatnot. That's not something that I can do, but for anyone who's looking for a career change to get into this space, not just from a trading point of view or investing point of view, but to build a career, it is a space right now that is lacking in good developers and good tech, and it's going to continue to lag as we see the market develop and grow. So a really good opportunity there for anybody who's looking to get involved with that.
Yeah, and yet you have to look at that. It's not just when you do your courses, one of the things that really hit me was you're not going to look, if you follow the rules, you're not going to lose your money, because, I think people have this idea from what people used to do in crypto as, just stick their money in there and leave it there. And people made a lot of money that way, but they also lost a lot of money that way. And there's sort of a lot of, I think there's myths out there that, you know, that your money's sort of at risk, but the way that you teach it, it's not like that at all. It's sort of in and out fairly quickly. So you're not, you know, it's not this sort of scammy sort of thing that I think some people think of. So that's part of the whole education thing as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Jennie. Can you tell us a little bit more about where the listeners and viewers can find more information about you, and if they want to get involved in your groups and what they can do to find you, all that sort of stuff, please?
Well, the main one is Yellow Balloon. So if you go there, then you can hook into the other things that I do. So that's a Facebook group at the moment. And yeah, just search for that on Facebook, and that's where I do most of my posting. And yeah, we have some fun there. There's some men in there as well. I think it's about 10% men, so about the opposite to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the tides have turned. I hope you're very respectful to the gentlemen in that room.
Mostly. Yeah.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Jennie. Thank you so much for what you're doing across, you know, a big network of people. I think it's really, really great. I'll continue to support. As you know, we're here. It's one of the causes that we really do try and push. We try and have as many women on the show that we can, trying really hard to make sure we're trying to get an even distribution so that the listeners understand that it is not just a space for men. They are welcome here. They do need to walk through with a bit of caution, but don't let anything scare you, because it's bigger than you, and it's going to change a lot of the way we do business around the world. And hopefully we can all be involved in this new revolution together, as opposed to being mostly done by men. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig.
Very soon. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye for now.
The Trader Cobb Crypto Show, talking business in blockchain.